Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the synthesis of yoga with our beloved Ranga. We are on page 62. What is the first line? The full recognition of this inner guide.
So, in this chapter, he is talking of the four aids. The first one was the Shastra. The second one is your personal effort, enthusiasm, utsaha, and then the Guru, and finally the instrumentality of time. So, he has dealt first with the Shastra. The Shastra, Sri Aurobindo says, is already there, or apart from the written scriptures all over the world. Each religion has got its own written scriptures, but the real knowledge is already within every man. That's what he says. The inner. Then your enthusiasm depends on how enthusiastic, how much effort you put into it. And he has told you also that the effort can be of two types. One can be an intensity and very, very concentrated, and the other one may be not so concentrated but spread consistently and steadily over a long time. Both can have their effects and both are valid in their own way. So, now he comes to the Guru. What should be the Guru in the integral yoga? And he says that the Guru also is already within you, because the divine is there within you and he is guiding you. He is hiding himself behind the thick veils of your body, the physical, the vital and the mind. But deep inside you, he is already there. And he is trying to give you guidance, but the guidance, however pure it be in the beginning, it comes through thick veils, and so it gets distorted. Sometimes it doesn't even reach the outer waking consciousness, and even if it reaches the waking consciousness, it is distorted greatly and you again misinterpret it because of your ignorance. So we have come up to this point. Now we'll read the next para. And note also interestingly that the divine presence within you is not absolutely the same as a psychic being. The psychic being is an individual consciousness which comes down into the physical world. But there is a divine presence apart from that in everything. For instance, it is there even in a stone. But it is not a psychic being in the stone. It's only the soul, the divine presence.
Can we say then that the psychic being is evolutionary, but the divine presence is not?
That's right. I think you could very well say that. The divine presence doesn't need to change. It's there, fully conscious. But the psychic being is the individual divine soul which has come down into the physical world and has plunged itself into the ignorance and the density of darkness, and it is slowly evolving. And it is a psychic being that is evolving. You can say that, certainly.
Does the psychic being, we know that the psychic being has to come out, but what does the divine presence do in us?
The divine presence is guiding you. That's what we are going to read now, the full recognition of the divine.
Exactly.
We are going to read that. The full recognition of this inner guide, master of the yoga, Lord, light, enjoyer, and goal of all sacrifice and effort, is of the utmost importance in the path of integral perfection. Note, integral perfection. In the integral yoga, it is absolutely essential to recognize the full recognition of the inner divine. Okay, so it is immaterial whether he is first seen as an impersonal wisdom, love and power behind all things, as an absolute manifesting in the relative and attracting it as one's highest self and this highest self of all, as a divine person within us and in the world. in one of his or her numerous forms and names, or as the ideal which the mind conceives. In the end, we perceive that he is all and more than all these things together. The mind's door of entry to the conception of him must necessarily vary according to the past evolution and the present nature. So, very small para, but we have to exactly understand what he's saying. So, the full recognition of this inner guide, partial recognition can come sometimes. You feel that he is there and he is guiding you. Srimdo had a very interesting experience in Baroda. Okay? In those days there were no cars. At least in Baroda there were no cars. And he was going in a horse carriage. And suddenly the possibility of an accident was there. And he felt the inner presence coming out and controlling the whole situation. He has a sonnet on that. Okay? I sat behind the dance of danger's hooves. So, for him it is all right, but for us it's much rarer. But sometimes you may have an inkling that you are being guided. Okay? Suddenly you see that circumstances are being arranged for exactly what you need. So you realize that there is a guidance. Okay? So, the full recognition is not easy, but it can come sometimes. He is saying it is absolutely essential. Okay? So, and who is this inner guide? He is the master of the yoga, Lord, light, enjoyer, and goal of all sacrifice and effort. The definition is very clear. He means the personal divine at the highest level. Master, when he uses the word master, he means the personal aspect of the divine who is also impersonal. They don't use the word master very easily and Lord, Ishwar. So he has used both the words here, which clearly indicates the highest personal aspect of the divine who is also impersonal. And then he says, it is immaterial whether he is first seen as an impersonal wisdom. This is the experience of the silent mind. When you make your mind silent, you enter into a consciousness which is impersonal, infinite, eternal, immutable, featureless. Like a blank, but it is so real that the world and everything else becomes unreal. Even your own individuality seems to become unreal. Because your ego disappears at that time. And you feel yourself to be, if you are lucky, you feel yourself to be one with the universe. You may have the cosmic consciousness, you may not have the cosmic consciousness. Okay? You feel only a peace and a calm. For Srimdo, it was only peace and calm and a sense of release, liberation. He is not imprisoned in the body-mind life anymore. For him, there was no emotion at all, for Srimdo. But for many others, there can be emotion, there can be a bit of power. It depends on the personal nature. That's what he says in the end. He says the way you experience the divine depends on the path you have followed in the past and what your nature has developed in you. Your nature may be totally different from somebody else's. So according to your nature, you experience the divine in that way. Okay, so it is somewhat very similar to, you have say 10 types of vessels and the water is the same, but when the water is poured into all these, it takes a different shape of the vessel. So that's exactly, the divine presence will be experienced by you according to your shape and the nature, your nature. It's very simple. So, it is impersonal, it is immaterial whether he is first seen as a impersonal wisdom, but also love and power behind all things, as an absolute manifesting in the relative and attracting it. Okay? As one's highest self and the highest self of all. So, as one's highest self, that means you yourself have become that. Or the highest self of all is a cosmic consciousness. The highest self of all is, everybody is included, that's a cosmic. But in the first one, your own, as one's highest self. You yourself, he is manifesting in you personally. Okay, so the first one excludes the universe, the second one includes the universe. Then, as a divine person within us and in the world, there you are again. The divine person within you is the realization of the individual divine within you, but also you may see him in the universe, okay, and in the world, in one of his or her numerous forms and names. So, this is the speciality of the Indian traditions, that the divine can have also the form of the Divine Mother. There are many Advaitic texts which deal with the Supreme Divine Mother. She is the one who will give you liberation. They don't even speak about the masculine aspect of the divine. The masculine aspect and feminine aspect are ways of speaking at our level. There is absolutely no sex there at all, no gender. But this is a way of speaking. And you remember Mother's experience? At the supramental level, she saw her own body. It was genderless, no gender at all. It was a perfect body, light at the highest level, but there was no gender at all there. So that would be the nature of the Supreme. So he is saying that you could experience the Divine Mother's presence also. Note interestingly, for Ramakrishna it was that. He is experiencing the Divine Mother. And for Sri Aurobindo, it was clearly Sri Krishna and his presence. So it's the other way around. Depends on your nature. Okay? So, numerous forms and names. So, if you are a Christian, it's very likely that you will see Christ. If you are a Buddhist, it's likely you will see Buddha's image. If you are a Vaishnavite, you will see Vishnu's image. If you are a Shaivite, you will see Shiva's image. If you are a follower of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, you will experience their presence. So it depends on your nature and what you are following. The divine being infinite, he will manifest according to what you are capable of receiving. That's what he's saying. Numerous forms and names, or as the ideal which the mind conceives. That's another thing. It could even be a principle, truth, love, okay, vastness. It could be that also. It's an ideal which the mind conceives. In the end, we perceive that he is all and more than all these things together. So he can be all these things and more than all these things together. The mind's door of entry to the conception of him must necessarily vary according to the past evolution and the present nature. Your past also will influence you, and your present nature also will influence you. And you will experience the divine according to your nature. And that's the whole problem with the Indian philosophies. Someone says the divine is impersonal. Someone says, no, he is personal. Somebody says, no, you can have a relation with him. And all the possible different conceptions come into, and they fight with each other. Here is Sri Aurobindo who comes and says all are valid at different levels. All are valid at different levels. Okay? This inner guide is often veiled at first by the very intensity of our personal effort and by the ego's preoccupation with itself and its aims. As we gain in clarity and the turmoil of egoistic effort gives place to the calmer self-knowledge, we recognize the source of the growing light within us. We recognize it retrospectively as we realize how all our obscure and conflicting movements have been determined towards an end that we only now begin to perceive. How, even before our entrance into the path of yoga, the evolution of our life has been designedly led towards its turning point. For now, we begin to understand the sense of our struggles and efforts, successes and failures. At last, we are able to seize the meaning of our ordeals and sufferings and can appreciate the help that was given us by all that hurt and resisted, and the utility of our very falls and stumblings. We recognize this divine leading afterwards, not retrospectively, but immediately in the molding of our thoughts by a transcendent seer, of our will and actions by an all-embracing power, of our emotional life by an all-attracting and all-assimilating bliss and love. We recognize it too in a more personal relation that from the first touched or at the last seizes us. We feel the eternal presence of a supreme master, friend, lover, teacher. We recognize it in the essence of our being as that develops into likeness and oneness with a greater and wider existence. For we perceive that this miraculous development is not the result of our own efforts. An eternal perfection is molding us into its own image. One who is the Lord or Ishvara of the yogic philosophies, the guide in the conscious being, Chaitya Guru or Antaryamin, the absolute of the thinker, the unknowable of the agnostic, the universal force of the materialist, the supreme soul and supreme Shakti, the one who is differently named and imaged by the religions, is the master of our yoga.
It's
Beautiful.
such an important section.
So who is this inner guide? He is telling you that he can be personal, he can be transcendent, he can be universal, he can be individual, but he is all these things together and much more, which you recognize in the end.
And he can even be unknown at first.
Yes, that's right. And sometimes on the path, you can get glimpses of him and you can know that you are being guided. And then he is saying, after a certain time, all your efforts and all your difficulties were designed to make you progress. The divine sees that you have a weakness somewhere, so he brings circumstances in such a way that you tackle that weakness. So it's an ordeal. You have a difficulty, and that difficulty is being presented to you so that you face it and conquer it. So you understand the reason for all your own difficulties. And then you realize that they were actually a blessing.
Yes.
When you are getting that difficulty, it's not a blessing anymore. You don't feel it as a blessing, but later on you can recognize. But once you have developed sufficiently, he's saying you recognize it not retrospectively, but immediately. When you are sufficiently well developed, you see a difficulty and you understand the reason for it. You understand how you are being helped. Not retrospectively, but immediately. This inner guide is often veiled at first by the very intensity of our personal effort. Now that's interesting, because an effort is a movement. And all movement is an obstruction. Only when there is no movement and there is absolute silence, then the divine can come in. And yet the effort is necessary. Interesting what he's saying. Okay, so the inner guide is often veiled at first by the very intensity of our personal effort and by the ego's preoccupation with itself and its aims. As we gain in clarity and the turmoil of egoistic effort gives place to a calmer self-knowledge, we recognize the source of the growing light within us. We recognize it retrospectively afterwards, as we realize how all our obscure and conflicting movements have been determined towards an end that we only now begin to perceive. How, even before our entrance into the path of the yoga, the evolution of our life has been designedly led towards its turning point. So you see that each circumstances that you've faced in life were purposely designed for you to develop certain capacities in yourself. That's what he's saying.
Even the death of someone.
Yes. The death of someone can be, in fact, it can be the starting point of his spiritual life for many. I know of one person in the ashram who, when her father died, instead of feeling sorrow, she became absolutely calm and quiet, and she had the experience of the self. Absolutely without any emotion. She told me this herself. So yes, death can be, because you start questioning all your values, what values you had, you start questioning. Death can be a very, very instructive experience.
But recognizing the source of the growing light within us,
Yes.
not so easy.
Not at all. Not at all. That's what he's saying, no? He's often veiled in the beginning.
Yes, yes.
So, we recognize it retrospectively as we realize how all our obscure and conflicting movements have been determined towards an end that we only now begin to perceive. How even before our entrance into the path of yoga, the evolution of our life had been designedly led towards its turning point. Even when you are not doing the yoga, you are being led towards it. That's what he's saying. Okay? So, for now, we begin to understand the sense of our struggles and efforts, successes and failures. At last, we are able to see the meaning of our ordeals and sufferings and can appreciate the help that was given us by all that hurt and resisted and the utility of our very falls and stumblings. So this is something very interesting. We always think of calamities as something which is an obstruction and a horrible experience. No, on the contrary, it's a blessing, he's saying. It's pushing you towards the truth.
But our own falls, our resistances,
Yeah.
are a utility, he says, a helpfulness, an aid. The utility of our very falls and stumblings.
Yeah, that's right. At last, we are able to see the meaning and origins of it, and we can appreciate the help that is given to us by all that hurt and the utility. How useful was the very fall that we had. Okay, they are all useful and meaningful. We recognize this divine leading afterwards, not retrospectively. Later on, when you are mature, not retrospectively, but immediately. You sense, oh, this difficulty is coming because of this. In the molding of our thoughts by a transcendent seer, of our will and actions by an all-embracing power, of our emotional life by an all-attracting and all-assimilating bliss and love. We recognize it too in a more personal relation that from the very first touched or at the last seizes us. We feel the eternal presence of a supreme master, friend, lover, teacher. By the way, I think I should mention it very clearly. If you look very carefully, whenever he's saying we feel, he is referring always to his own experiences. So here also, if you see, okay, eternal presence of a supreme master, friend, lover, teacher. In jail, when he was there, he is constantly experiencing Sri Krishna's presence. So, we recognize it in the essence of our being as that develops into likeness and oneness with a greater and wider existence. This likeness and oneness is very interesting. What he means is that in the Karma Yoga, you put on the nature of the divine. So your nature becomes likeness. They call that, he has used the words now earlier, samipya and sadharmya. Sadharmya, you put on the nature of the divine. There are many types of liberations. Sayujya, you become one with the divine. Samipya, you have intimacy with the divine. Salokya, you are living in the same world as the divine. And you are also sadharmya, you put on the nature of the divine. So, likeness when he's saying, he means the sadharmya. Okay? So, oneness with a greater and better. For we perceive that this miraculous development is not the result of our own efforts. An eternal perfection is molding us into its own image. The eternal perfection is using a very impersonal aspect. But that is molding us into its own image. I think there is a very similar phrase in the Bible also. No? Man is made in the image of God or something like that. There is, I don't remember exactly, but this is a common idea. That the human being and the divine, the anthropomorphic idea, that God is like a human being, but with eternal powers. So, one who is the Lord and Ishvara of the yogic philosophies, there you are. When he's saying Lord and Ishvara, he means at the highest level, the personal divine, okay, of the yogic philosophies, the guide in the conscious being, Chaitya Guru or Antaryamin. Antaryamin is the one who is within you. That's a divine presence within you. Antaryamin. The absolute of the thinker. The unknowable of the agnostic. So you can experience the divine in all these ways. Okay? You can experience him as the absolute of the thinker. The unknowable of the agnostic. The universal force of the materialist. The supreme soul and supreme Shakti. The one who is differently named and imaged by the religions is the master of our yoga. Beautiful. Small paras, and he is explaining who is this inner guide. He is everything, and he can take so many different forms, and you can experience him in different ways. But depending on your nature. So ultimately you will recognize that he is all these things and much more than that. To see, know, become and fulfill this one in our inner selves and in all our outer nature was always the secret goal and becomes now the conscious purpose of our embodied existence. To be conscious of him in all parts of our being and equally in all that the dividing mind sees as outside our being is a consummation of the individual consciousness. To be possessed by him and possess him in ourselves and in all things is the term of all empire and mastery. To enjoy him in all experience of passivity and activity, of peace and of power, of unity and of difference is the happiness which the jiva, the individual soul, manifested in the world is obscurely seeking. This is the entire definition of the aim of integral yoga. It is the rendering in personal experience of the truth which universal nature has hidden in herself and which she travails to discover. It is a conversion of the human soul into the divine soul and of natural life into divine living. So we'll look at all the words and see what he means. So, to see the divine is one thing, to know him is another thing, and to become him is altogether another thing. Okay, so to see him could be the path of bhakti, to know him is the path of jnana yoga, to become him is the path of karma yoga. Okay, so and fulfill this one in our inner selves and in all our outer nature. Most of the yogas are satisfied in your inner self. My consciousness has reached the divine, and the body-mind life, like a ripe fruit, will fall off in time. So I don't care for that, because that's not going to be permanent. I have realized the divine, that's enough. But simply saying, even the outer nature must also experience the divine. To see, know, become and fulfill this one in our inner selves and in all our outer nature. So which is outer nature? Your body, your life and your mind. Not the inner mind, inner life, inner body. No, that's the inner being. So the outer, the physical body, the outer, the desire soul as you calls it, and the ignorant mind. There also you must feel the divine. And you must feel the transformation. Okay, so to be conscious of Him in all parts of our being and equally in all that the dividing mind sees as outside our being. So, why do we feel ourselves to be separate from everybody else? Because of the ego. And where is the ego situated? Mostly in the mind. It is there in the vital, it begins. But the ego is not fully developed in the animal. It begins. But in human beings, mainly the ego is in the mind. It is that which divides. It divides me from you. It divides me from everything else in the physical world. But when you have the cosmic consciousness, the ego decides, the mind has gone silent, so you get the cosmic consciousness. You feel yourself one with everybody else. Okay? In all that the dividing mind sees as outside our being. We see it as outside our being, but in the cosmic consciousness you see everything within yourself. Again we come back to those sonnets. I should have got them down, but the largest stars in the universe are burning within me. Arcturus and Belphegor are burning within me. I don't remember the exact line, but that's what it says. They're all inside you. Okay? Within. Is a consummation of the individual consciousness. To be possessed by Him and possess Him in ourselves. Now, what does it mean? To be possessed by Him, He will completely use you as a puppet. But it is the happiest condition you can be if you are a puppet to Him. Because you don't have to make any effort. He is doing everything for you. He is moving you about like a puppet. So, this is the interesting part. When you think that you are free, you are actually a slave to nature. You are a slave to nature, universal nature. When you are a slave to the divine, you have surrendered to Him fully. That is a liberation. Because now the divine is doing everything for you. You are liberated from the clutches of nature. So, to be possessed by Him and possess Him in ourselves. What does it mean by possessing the divine in yourself? You have all His powers. You have all His love. You have all His nature. You are possessing the divine in yourself. When you possess something, you can do whatever you want with it. You are the master of what you possess. So if you possess the divine, he often uses this phrase. You have all His powers and you have all His love, nature, everything. So it sounds funny that you possess the divine. You are an individual, and how can you possess the infinite? But it's possible, because your consciousness also becomes infinite. Okay, so to be possessed by Him and possess Him in ourselves and in all things. So, not only you possess the divine in yourself, but in everything else also. So, he uses two words. I'll come to that, because he uses English words, but he also uses Sanskrit words. We will come to that. Okay, so of Him in all parts of our being and equally in all that the dividing mind sees. To be possessed by Him and possess Him in ourselves and all things is a term of all empire and mastery. So, when you see Him within yourself, he uses the word Swarat. Swarat means you are emperor of your own inner kingdom. But when you possess Him in all things outside, you are Samrat. You are the emperor. That's why he uses the word empire. He is hinting at Swarat and Samrat. So here is Sri Aurobindo sitting in Pondicherry and manipulating forces in Calcutta, curing people, not interfering, that's the wrong word, guiding movements, historical movements all over the world, experimenting. In the Russian Revolution, in the change of government in Turkey, in Ireland, the Sinn Féin movement, everywhere he was helping. And we wouldn't have known about his help unless there was evidence. And we have two clear evidences. One is John Kelly. He knew that Sri Aurobindo is helping him. And the other is that Silvio Crasionas, who we never came to know about him, but he wrote that book, The Lost Footsteps, in which he says that Aurobindo Dogos came to me and was helping me. So these are the two things which we know what he was doing. When he says that you are Samrat, you are the emperor of the universe. You can do what you want. You are master.
And it was both in extreme moments that he came.
Yeah.
To John,
That's
when
right.
his platoon was being demolished,
Yeah.
and to this man when he was being tortured.
Yeah. And he was about to commit suicide, and then he comes in. And then in the book he says very interestingly, he says, "Who are you and why are you helping me?" He asks him. So he says, "I am Aurobindo Dogos." That's why they're written in two words like that. Aurobindo Dogos. And then he says, "Don't you remember? We have been together for a long time." It's a beautiful 3 pages in that book. He describes his experience of Sri Aurobindo.
He met Mother, I heard.
Huh?
He came and met Mother.
No.
This man never
No,
did.
he never came here.
Oh, I thought.
We have never met him also. We don't know anything about him. Because it was the Iron Curtain then. Romania was a communist country.
Yes.
And he was fighting against the communists. That's why he was in danger. They tried to contact him from here, some people, like Purani and others, but without success. Because he was very, very careful to keep his identity secret. Because otherwise the authorities will come and again take him back and torture him. So it was not possible to meet him. But John Kelly, yes, he did come here. And
Yes.
so, all empire and mastery, he is using English words, but he means exactly this. Swarat and Samrat. Swarat means you are master of yourself. And Samrat, you are master of the universe. You are the emperor. To enjoy him in all experience of passivity and activity. Passivity, the experience of the self. And activity, the Saguna and the Nirguna Brahman. The Saguna Brahman is seeing the divine in the universe, in all movements, in all events, in all relative things in the physical world, all sequences. So, you see the divine in passivity and activity, of peace and of power. Peace again refers to the self, and power refers to the presence in the universe, in the physical world. So that again is the Saguna, Nirguna Saguna, the featureless and the featured, qualityless and the qualitied. Then unity and difference. Again, when you are in the spiritual planes of consciousness, you are experiencing the unity. But you must also experience the divine in the difference, in the physical world, the many, the unity and the multiplicity. You must experience both. You must see the divine here, and you must see the divine in the oneness also. That's what he's saying. That's Sri Aurobindo's goal, not the other yogas. The other yogas, they want only unity, not multiplicity. They want only peace. They are not interested in power.
I had an experience with Mother in which she is taking me on the edge of all the worlds. And she extends her arm like this and she says, "I am showing you the diversity in order that you may realize the unity."
There you are. This is the entire definition. So, The entire definition of the aim of integral yoga is to see the divine at all the levels. It's not enough to have only his experience in the second level of the spiritual planes of consciousness, but you must see him also in the physical world. You must see him in passivity as well as activity. You must see him in peace as well as love and power. That's what he's saying. And all this is possible at the third level, the supermind. If you don't go to the supermind, you will not get this experience. That's what this is the integral yoga. That's the aim. To experience the divine everywhere in all the ways. Not only in peace, but also in power. Not only in immobility, but also in the mobile. That's what it means. This is the entire definition of the aim of integral yoga. It is the rendering in personal experience of the truth which universal nature has hidden in herself and which she travails to discover. Now that's interesting. He is saying that universal nature, there's an involution. The divine is involved himself and nature, matter is hiding the divine in herself and is with great difficulty trying to express him. That's a evolution. So the individual must do the same. That's what he's saying. Okay? He's always constantly throughout. Whatever is there in the universe, you follow that. It's easy. Just do that. Because the divine is doing it in the universe. So you follow that. Okay? So this is the entire definition of the aim of integral yoga. I'll be a little more specific. When nature is evolving, out of matter she is evolving life. But when she evolves life, she is not rejecting matter. It's a combination of life and matter. It's a combination. There's no rejection. At the same time, when you get knowledge, okay, she is not rejecting the body, now she is rejecting the vital. So why shouldn't the yogi reject the vital and the mind? That's what Swam's argument. Do what nature is doing. Don't reject. Integrate. That's what he's saying. Okay? That's what he's meaning here. It is a rendering in personal experience of the truth which universal nature has hidden in herself and which she travails to discover. It is a conversion of the human soul into the divine soul and of natural living, of natural life into divine living. What is natural life? You have to be very clear. Don't think natural in the normal sense of the word. Natural means of nature, which means your body-mind life. So when he says natural life, when you are identified with your body-mind life and you are in ignorance. That's what it means. It has to become a divine life. The surest way towards the integral fulfillment. How to do that? We have to see that. We take it up next time?
Yeah. Namaste all. Thank you, Ranga.